Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online, and so it begins. Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé Season 8. And from what I've seen thus far, it promises to be a car crash. And we have a mixture of the old and the new. So today I'm going to get straight into it, and we're going to be reviewing Mike and Natalie, and Brandon and Julia. Just before I begin, thank you so much to everyone that subscribed. I hit 35,000 subscribers this past weekend and I'm super grateful. I have a special treat for you guys, a question and answer video, so you can get to find a little bit more out about the eBird. So if you haven't done so yet, please listen to the video and it will give you more details. I'll put a link up here, but I'll also put a link in information down below as well. And if you've yet to do so, what are you waiting for? Press that red subscribe button and don't miss my Season 8 reviews. And also don't forget to press the bell notification. So without further ado, I give you Brandon and Julia. So Brandon is a pest control technician who's 27 from Virginia. And Julia is a go-go dancer from Russia. So guys, I did review these two in my Season 8 couples review, so if you've yet to see that, I'll link it here because it's quite interesting and it gives us a little bit of background to the relationship. But we first see Brandon in his job as a pest controller, and we see him going out to a client and we see him spraying some sort of horrible bugs with insecticide. And Brandon tells us he enjoys his job because he's not stuck behind a desk and he gets to go to new places and he gets to see a lot of different stuff. I guess every rat is a new rat, right? And guys, I didn't really know what to make of this, but I think we can safely say that Brandon has set his bar spectacularly low. And we also find out that he lives and works with his parents on a farm and a dog breeding kennel. He's unusually close with his parents, Ron and Betty, here often known as Betty the Controller. And he met Julia when she was working. One of his friends went to see her in a go-go dancing club, and she FaceTimed with Brandon. They started chatting, and the rest, as they say, is history. 5 months after they first started chatting, he flew her out to Iceland, where he proposed to her, and she accepted. So we don't find out an awful lot in this episode, except for sort of filler information. So we find out quite interestingly that he's a real family boy, and it seems that she's quite a family girl as well, because both of their families met in France for a joint holiday, and it seems as if both sets of parents got on very well. However, Betty and Ron do tell production that they're somewhat worried that Julia wants to come over just for the green card and she's only interested in Brandon for his American citizenship. And I've got a feeling this is going to be an ongoing theme with these guys. In many ways they kind of undermine him and they treat him like a little baby. I think he's good looking and interesting enough in his own right that she might fancy him. I'm not saying she does or she doesn't, but it kind of seems as if his parents have already ruled that out. And I find that quite strange. So later on when we see Brandon, he's talking with his parents and they seem to be renovating his bedroom. But then he explains that he and Julia aren't going to be allowed to stay in the same room when she arrives and they're going to have separate bedrooms. And Betty the Controller explains, I don't mind if you're sleeping together in a hotel, but not under this roof, it's not going to fly. And guys, I think this is going to be the very first of his problems. Imagine you're from Russia, you've never been out of the country, you come over to America, you've got 90 days to decide if you like this person and if you want to get married, but you're not allowed to have quality time together in your own room. It doesn't bode well. But in even worse news for Julia, Brandon tells us he can't afford to move out of his parents' home because he's $10,000 in debt. And as it turns out, Brandon paid for the holiday to Paris, he paid for the holiday to Iceland, and he's paid in entirety for the whole of the K1 visa process. And so it's fair to say he's financially strapped at the moment. And then later on we see Brandon chatting to Betty the Controller, his mum, whilst they're working on the farm, and she explains that she's a little bit worried about how it's going to be perceived that Julie is a go-go dancer. And she said, you know, I understand, but in America I think people might perceive it to be a little bit more. And to be fair, I'm in agreement with Betty. As soon as I hear go-go dancer, I hear pole dancer, or I hear stripper. And I guess the difference between a go-go dancer and a stripper is literally a thong. But Brandon tells us it's completely different. Apparently we can split legs, but not hairs. But oh no, Betty the Controller ramps it right up and she says, I hope it was go-go dancing and not prostitution. I hope she wasn't a call girl. Brandon's assured us that she's not a call girl, and both of us hope that that's part of her past and not of her future. Betty, why would you come onto national TV and speculate as to if your son's fiancé was a call girl? That is quite an allegation with literally zero evidence. Betty, my love, you're as wrong as all hell for that. And the eBird thinks that given that Brandon's a pest controller, Betty's very lucky that she hasn't been eradicated. So next time we see these guys, they're clearing out Brandon's room. And his dad asks if he's told her that she's not allowed to stay in the same room. And Brandon says, no, I haven't. And his dad said this is no way to conduct a relationship, you have to be honest from the outset. I never ever agree to men lying to women, but I've got to say for once it's probably best he doesn't tell the truth. The reasons are as follows. 1, he's already taken her on not 1, not 2, but 3 separate holidays. 2, he's already 10 grand in debt. So he may as well get her over here just to see if they get on or not. And 3, I think if he lets her know, there's a good chance she might not come. I can imagine it's going to be overwhelming moving to a different country, and it might be so overwhelming thinking you're going to be on your own that she doesn't actually come. So for once I think staying stum is probably the best option. And as they're still in their bedroom, talk turns to sex. As it does. Oh god, poor Brandon, I've got third-hand cringe on his behalf. And Betty the controller wants to know what they're doing for birth control. I think the most effective method of birth control for this couple would be to spend an evening with Betty. The thought of reproducing those genes would put anybody off. But Brandon explains to his mum that she doesn't like the idea of birth control. She doesn't want to put anything foreign into her body. And her mum says, are you taking precautions? And he said, well, no, I don't really think I want to take on that kind of responsibility. What? You don't want to take on the responsibility of putting on a condom? If you don't take on that responsibility, you'll take on the responsibility of having a whole new human being. And I think you'll find that blood and cells is a little bit more responsibility than oil and latex. Just saying. And he lets production know he doesn't really like condoms. Answers down below. Do we think they're too tight, or do we think they slip off? I know what I think. And Betty says, I think she should book in with my doctor and talk about birth control when she gets here. We don't want any accidents. And Brandon said, no, Mum, she won't do it. Leave it alone. It's none of your business. Go on, Brandon. That's Betty told. And next time we see them, all 3 of them are in a taxi going to the airport. And apparently they're going to pick her up and stay for a few nights in a hotel, and she's going to go sightseeing in Washington DC. And you guys, I couldn't believe what I saw next. Whilst they were in the car, Betty the controller actually got on the phone to her doctor and made an appointment for Julia to have some sort of birth control. And what did Brandon do? Brandon said absolutely nothing. Brandon, at this point you really needed to say, Mum, keep your nose out. Do not talk to Julia about this. If anyone's going to talk to her, I will. But he said absolutely nothing. Oh guys, where would we find a person like Brandon? All together now. Yep, that's right. In your friend zone. And we finish up with Brandon telling production he's not sure if they're meant to be together, but he's sure he loves her. So what do we make of this couple after this first segment? I think they're going to have the following problems. 1, Brandon's very young for his 27 years old. He hasn't moved out of home, and it seems as if he doesn't have an independent bone in his body. 2, Betty and Ron are quite overbearing parents, and they both think that Brandon's about 7, not 27. 3, the living arrangements leave a lot to be desired, and this is for 2 reasons. 1, apparently this Julie is a city girl, and obviously they live in the middle of the country on a farm. But secondly, they're going to be living together, and it would be difficult, I think, even if he had normal parents, but he's got the most overbearing parents known to man. And we can see that Betty the controller isn't going to poke her nose out of their business for 1 second. So I think that's going to get real old real quick. The next problem is that Brandon is in 10 grand's worth of debt. So they're not going to be able to move out anytime soon. And so I think living with your parents is one thing, but if you live with your parents and you know there's no realistic chance of getting out within the next 6 months, that's going to seem like forever. And so there are all the problems that I see happening within about 2 or 3 days of her disembarking. But overall, I've got to say, it seems as if these two are quite a good match. Betty's worried that she wants a green card, and that may or may not be true, but I do think that Brandon's funny and quirky and interesting enough and good looking enough that she could potentially actually fancy him anyway. But I do have a feeling that she wants to get pregnant. They're not using any birth control. She refuses to use birth control, but then we see in the spoiler that she's using a pregnancy test, and she asks, what do 2 lines mean? Different things to different people. To Betty it means, I bloody knew it. To Brandon it means, oh shit, get a 3rd job. But I've got a feeling to Julia it means, ding ding ding, jackpot. So overall I'd say this couple have a fair chance of making it. I'm really interested to see what their interpersonal interaction is going to be like. And that's everything for this week. And next up we have our old favourites, Michael and Natalie. And so Mike, who's from the US, met Natalie from the Ukraine via one of Mike's best friends, and Mike's already been over to the Ukraine to see Natalie several times. We remember seeing them a couple of seasons ago on this show. So Mike lives on a wood farm with his Uncle Beau, and last time we saw this couple, we ascertained that Natalie is bat-shit crazy. And if you've forgotten about all the crazy things she's done, have a look at my last video. Again, I'll link it here and link it down below. Or alternatively, you can type Ukrainian psycho biatch into Google and observe the results. And so how does Mike describe Natalie? He says she's goofy, funny, smart, and she's got an attitude, but for the most part, she's a kind, fun-loving person. What? Alright Mike, let's take this one by one. She's goofy, i.e. she's faking being goofy. She's funny, yep, that's right, she's funny looking. She's smart, again you're right, she's certainly got a smart mouth. She's got an attitude, yep, a bad one, a real bad attitude. And she's a kind, loving person. This I have nothing for. All I can say is that I've missed those bits. Perhaps they're on a TLC cutting room floor. And so they take us on a quick trip down memory lane. When she said she didn't love him, but she's grown to love him. When she threw her engagement ring at him. But we've forgotten a couple of other things. The time that she threatened him never ever to talk about her ex-husband. The time she told him that he'd go directly to hell because he isn't a Christian. And the multiple times when she was an Uber bitch to him. TLC have forgotten to put all those in. But we catch up with Mike and he's driving along and he takes a call from Natalie. He puts her on FaceTime and Natalie's grinning ear to ear and she tells him, "I've got my visa." Guys, I literally couldn't believe Mike's response. He said, "I feel happy. I feel excited. I can't contain myself." Literally, his tone was as flat as a pancake. His body language was quite simply unbelievable. He was rubbing his temples, and you could tell he was clenching his jaw. Mike knows very well Natalie's not the one, and then she tells him that she has to be in the US in 20 days. And what I found interesting at this point was the fact that she'd already been looking at tickets, but she hadn't called him first. So her first instinct was to get herself over there and not to think about what Mike thinks to the whole situation. And then she said, "Say something," and he said, "It's very fast. Holy moly, we've got a lot to figure out. We have a lot of stuff to talk about." And then he tells production he's not ready to get married right now. And he said, "Well, we'll give it a go, and at least we can say we've tried." With that kind of effort, Mike, you're not really going to get a good result now, are you? But he is honest with her and he tells her he's unsure of the relationship. But all Natalie can think to say is, "There's one thing which bothers me." "What's that?" "Where's Uncle Beau?" Uncle Beau's visiting his son at the moment." "Yeah, he'll be back in a couple of days." "I will not stay in the house with a stranger." And Mike said, "His family. He will be living with us. He's here." And she said, "You are joking, right?" And Mike said, "No, I'm not. I'm not about to kick Uncle Beau out of his home." And just when I think Natalie can't sink any lower, she does. How is Uncle Beau a stranger? Uncle Beau is Mike's uncle. He's family. When Mike stayed with you in the Ukraine, did he stay with your mum? Yes, he did. Why? Your mum is family. He didn't describe your mum as a stranger, now did he? Natalie is selfish and weird and bizarre. And so that's pretty much everything from these guys for this week. We have a short scene where Mike talks to his hairdresser and more or less says, "I'm not sure about her." But all of that's background noise as far as I'm concerned. We see right at the start and again on the trailers at the end that this relationship massively breaks down and Natalie's saying, "He's a monster, he's horrible. I have to leave immediately and I'm really scared. It's in the middle of COVID." Natalie, don't worry, COVID wouldn't go within 10 feet of you. And so what I'm going to ask you guys is why you think this relationship breaks down. Here are my reasons. I bet it's because 1, she doesn't get on with his mum and she wants rid of Uncle Beau. Remember when I said many seasons ago, Uncle Beau ain't safe, guys. Uncle Beau ain't safe. I knew if she ever set foot on US soil, she was going to try and make Uncle Beau homeless quicker than you could say tramp on the street. And guys, I know Mike thinks at heart Natalie's a good person. I'm sorry, I can't agree with him. I really don't. I've seen no evidence thus far. So let me know in comments, what do you think the reason for this breakdown was? Obviously there was some sort of massive showdown and she leaves one day before they were due to get married. But what do you think it is? Answers down below. And also let me know what you think about Brandon and Julia. Do you think that Betty the controller is going to be far too much for Julia to handle? I certainly do. So let me know what you think in comments down below. And again, thank you guys so much for my 35,000 subscribers. Let me know if you have any questions for our Q&A. Please don't put the questions in comments on this video. Please put them in comments on the actual 35k subscriber video, just so that I have everything together. And if you haven't yet, please press the subscribe button, join the Ebird family, and thank you as always so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online. That's about enough for me. I bid you good day.